Joshua Tree National Park. Sun. Unblocked, unshielded, melting a leaden sky. This is California's Mojave, the hottest desert on the North American continent, and the site of a form of vegetation found nowhere else but here, the strange Joshua tree. As fanciful as something out of fiction. The high elevation of the Mojave Desert creates a special habitat. Joshua Tree National Park. Together with the Colorado Desert and southeastern California, two seemingly unwelcoming ecosystems combine to create the almost 800,000 acres of the park. With courage and faith, early Mormons were among the first pioneers to traverse this wilderness. To them, this unusual tree symbolized the biblical hero Joshua. Joshua, who led his people into a land of milk and honey. And so they christened it the Joshua Tree. The name stuck, but the Mormons didn't. They soon moved on. Actually, the Joshua isn't a tree at all, but a fruit-bearing member of the lily family. Grass stubbles these valleys, providing pasture for high-ground ranching. With ranching came rustlers. Then the 49ers invaded the territory in their furious search for gold. Others settled down and stayed. Bill Keys was one. This is the rambling desert ranch house where he raised his children. The little school, his old cars. But these aren't the only reminders of Bill Keys. This rock marks the site of a gunfight, one of the last in the West, where Bill Keys shot and killed a fellow for poaching on his land. His tombstone reads, "Here is where Worth Bagley bit the dust by the hand of W.F. Keys, May 11, 1943. Keys served a prison sentence and then came home to Joshua Tree to live out his remaining days. There are other landmarks worth hiking to. The decaying ruins at Wonderland Ranch, the Wall Street Mill, a huge rock resembling a human skull, and the Oasis of Mara. Its year-round trickle of water attracting a vast species of birds. Birds that one rarely sees elsewhere in the park. More easily seen is the energetic roadrunner. This bird can run up to 15 miles an hour. It can fly too, but usually doesn't. There are otherworldly landscapes on this terrain. Great granite monoliths from the Earth's fiery underground, sculpted by eons of erosion. Hills of bare rock that were formed 100 million years ago. These geologic displays have made a mecca of this park to rock climbing enthusiasts. They're a jungle gym for beginners, and a challenging workout for the experienced. This national park has become a world-renowned climbing destination. The courage of these climbers adds another human element to the grit of the pioneers, the cunning of the rustlers, and the dreams of the gold seekers. that still linger in the deserts of Joshua Tree National Park. Death Valley National Park. Elsewhere in the Mojave, just north of Joshua Tree, a seemingly endless noon grills a vast expanse of barren dunes. Lying far below sea level, this is Death Valley, the most exotic of our national parks. East of the Sierra Nevada, between the arid Great Basin and the Mojave, this is the largest park in the contiguous United States. Though there's often snow on the distant Paramount Mountains, it can be the hottest place in North America. In August, a brutal 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade, if shade can be found. Hot enough to melt a pair of shoes. A sign at Badwater Basin marks the lowest spot on the continent. A drop from Death Valley's highest mountain, 11,049-foot Telescope Peak to Badwater Basin, is twice the depth of Grand Canyon. There were large lakes here once, in the prehistoric past. But the Earth's climate's changed, and the lakes dried up. Yet, Death Valley exudes a strange beauty all its own. As America's poet Mark Strand has discovered, its million-plus areas of yellows, oranges, faint reds, and purple smudges of manganese suggest a Martian landscape, or what we believe the reaches of Mars to be like. Precious water from rare desert springs sustains wildlife. Humans were drawn here in the 1900s by the land's mineral wealth. Mines were constructed. Borax, a mineral with many industrial uses, was extracted from the ancient salt crusts lining the lakes that had once shimmered here. The borax was hauled to the railroad in huge 20-mule team wagons. Tent cities sprang up. Which gave way to settlements of wood and stone. Rhyolite is one of them. Today, Rhyolite, just outside the park, is a ghost town, and well worth a visit. Now, these ghost towns bleach in the torrid sun, until one day, they simply fade back into the desert. But all isn't ghostly. After a lengthy stretch of bareness, a raw, harsh wasteland, a visitor encounters this. No, it isn't a mirage or a sign of sunstroke. This architectural hybrid, part Spanish, part Mediterranean, part Hollywood backlot, is Scotty's Castle, the most famous man-made attraction in Death Valley. Though he never really owned it, it's named after Death Valley Scotty, the wildest two-legged critter ever to dwell in these parts. As a young cowboy, Scotty travels with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, performing as a trick rider and sharpshooter. But these aren't Scotty's only talents. He has an inborn knack for, you might say, playing tricks with the truth. Plain folks call it lying. One of his imaginary grub stakes is a pie-in-the-sky gold mine in a little-known valley. Well, Scotty goes east to Chicago to sell shares in his pipe dream mine to unsuspecting businessmen. As luck would have it, he peddles a third of the shares to Albert Johnson, the wealthy president of the National Life Insurance Company. Scotty had corralled a real sucker. Poor Johnson hadn't seen so much as a single gold nugget. Pleased with himself, Scotty returns to Death Valley, leaving the swindled Albert Johnson behind in Chicago. Or does he? A telegram reaches Scotty. Albert Johnson is coming to Death Valley to see for himself this gold mine of which he is now part owner. Scotty's alarmed, but can't dissuade Johnson from coming out. En route to Death Valley, Albert Johnson and Scotty are halted by masked bandits. It's a holdup. Rumor has it that Scotty had the holdup staged as a delaying tactic. In any case, Johnson returns to Chicago, never having seen the bogus gold mine. But Johnson makes another trip. Scotty's beside himself. It seems that Johnson had some serious health problems and finds the desert air healing. As a matter of fact, he hasn't felt so well in years as he does in Death Valley. His visits become longer and more frequent, and soon he's bringing his wife Bessie along with him. Bessie too likes the desert, but she dislikes sleeping in a tent among rattlesnakes and scorpions. Bessie wants something more comfortable. And so, in the 1920s, construction begins on what comes to be called Scotty's Castle. Today, you can wander through the opulently furnished rooms. The Great Hall and the music room, with its theater organ of 1,121 pipes. The Johnsons allow their mansion to be called Scotty's Castle. The three of them become fast friends, and Albert Johnson lets it be known that the castle's construction was financed with profits from the gold mine, which never did exist. Though touring Scotty's Castle is a stellar attraction, Death Valley offers sundry other activities, of the kind that tone the body. For the rugged, during the cooler months, hiking is popular. And being the Wild West, horseback riding. One can make Death Valley a golfing vacation, with a whole new take on golf. The 18-hole par 70 Furnace Creek course is the world's lowest elevation golf course. There's a noticeable difference in how the ball responds. This course is a challenge. Seasonally, the stubbornly dry desert yields to brief torrents of winter rain. And the desert explodes in a springtime array of exotic flowers. This is Death Valley when it is most alive.